Recording now.
Okay. So here I have our handy dandy blackboard.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
All right. So we left off with, let's see, we left off with Chanuka and the clash of civilizations about the dust. And we were saying that the essence of the conflict could be seen in Ezra and Nechemia, because they really articulated the sense of the dust, which characterized the Jewish state in Israel, which the Greeks were attacking. The Greeks were attacking a continuation of the vision of the political organization that Ezra and Nechemia had inspired. So, if we understand the dust that was governing the land of Israel as it was taught by Ezra and Nechemia, we'll understand, because these were the students of Ezra and Nechemia, we will understand in greater clarity what exactly the conflict was. So I'd like to introduce, because Ezra and Nechemia make reference to Moshe Rabbeinu. Nechemia particularly makes reference to Moshe Rabbeinu. And what I want to do is I want to clarify a little bit what it is about Moshe Rabbeinu that Nechemia is referring to, and then see it inside. Now, what I'll say first is that it was referring to is the relationship to Hashem, specifically of davening, of prayer. Really, the key to beginning to understand the state that the Greeks attacked is to understand prayer, and why that is, we'll see now. Now, specifically, prayer presupposes a relationship with Hashem, which is to say, a concept of Hashem, and an impact of that concept upon man, because prayer is a response to a sense of a person that there is a Hashem who is the source of his success, and that's why he prays. He prays to Hashem based upon his concept of Hashem. And that relationship, that preliminary relationship, I'm not saying it's the end of the relationship, but the beginning of that relationship, where man begins to pray to Hashem and his das transforms by that, is Yira, is awe. And I want to share that inside. That's the lesson that Moshe Rabbeinu is teaching, and that Nechemia builds upon. So if we had to characterize the state of the vision of the dust of Ezra and Nechemia, I would start off with one term, Yira, Yiras Hashem, awe of Hashem. Now, what is this awe of Hashem? Now, specifically, the piece that I took here from Chumash is the piece which talks about Tefillah, and specifically the most important term in Tefillah, which is Baruch Hashem Elokeinu K'Elokeinu Kel Hagadol Hagibor V'Hanor. So where does the first bracha B'Shemona Esrei? So where does that come from? It comes from Moshe Rabbeinu, specifically in Devarim Parak Yud, right here. So the Yira of Hashem, which is the relationship to Hashem, is really the same thing as understanding Hashem as the Kel Hagadol Hagibor V'Hanor. Let's see it inside, right here. So Devarim Yud. V'ata Yisrael, and now Israel. Ma Hashem Elokecha Shmuel Meimach. What is Hashem your God requiring from you, requesting from you? Ki im liyiraz Hashem Elokecha. Only to have awe of Hashem your God. L'lechetz b'chol drachav, to go in His ways. U'la'avoto, and to love Him. U'la'avod Hashem Elokecha b'chol lavav b'chol nafshecha, and to serve Hashem your God with all your heart, with all your soul. So this relationship to Hashem, which begins with Yira and concludes with Ava, is all that Hashem is requiring from us. So how does that work? Hein laHashem Elokecha, Hashemayim u'shmei Hashemayim. Behold, Hashem has the heavens, and the heavens on top of the heavens. Ha'aretz v'kol asher ba, the earth and all which is upon it. That pasuk right there really begins the process of Yira. Hein laHashem Elokecha, Hashemayim u'shmei Hashemayim, ha'aretz v'kol asher ba. Behold, Hashem, to Hashem your God is the heavens, and the heavens upon the heavens, the earth and all which is upon it. Now, what is Moshe Rabbeinu articulating? Namely, that the wisdom of Hashem, Hein laHashem Elokecha, the wisdom of Hashem, the Creator, governs the Shamayim u'shmei Hashemayim, the heavens. In other words, in the big picture, the heavens are clearly astronomically controlled by His great wisdom. Ha'aretz v'chol asher ba. But it isn't just the heavens. Hashem is not just the Hashem of Shamayim. He's the Hashem of the Aretz as well. Now, if Hashem is the Hashem of the Shamayim, if Hashem is I would call that the cosmic God. If Hashem is the cosmic God, does it really add much to say Ha'aretz v'kol asher ba? The Shamayim is infinite light years and light years of cosmic systems. So what is it really adding to say Ha'aretz v'kol asher ba? Okay, there's billions and trillions of star system included in Shamayim. Why does Aretz get one little tiny planet? Why does that get its own little Ha'aretz v'kol asher ba? He's the cosmic God. He's the God of everything. His wisdom controls the astronomy of all material bodies. Why identify the Aretz particularly?
Could he mean that when he says V'kol asher ba, that he's meaning humanity as well?
But humanity is a tiny. If we are, the universe of Shamayim is measurable in light years. The entire planet Earth, with all of humanity upon it, is a tiny. It's not even a piece of sand in the universe of Shamayim. So what is why would one want to signify Aretz in particular, even if it does include man?
Well, isn't this piece pretty much directed at us in terms of how are we to relate to HaKadosh Baruch Hu? So we have to be able to find our place in that vast thing. Otherwise, it's just this vast system, which is not. It seems distinct from us. So we have to figure out, okay, how do we fit in? Where do we fit into this vast system in order to begin to understand how we are supposed to relate to this kind of God concept?
So where do we think we fit in?
Well, we might think that Hashem rules everything, but doesn't really have much to do with us. That's what I would conclude if you just told me that He rules the heavens and the stars and all the planets. I wouldn't necessarily think that He gives a darn about us having a relationship with Him.
What is man that you should remember him?
Yeah.
But what follows from that is that if Hashem doesn't govern us, then who governs us?
I guess we try to govern us.
We govern ourselves. The other possibility is that we ignore the astronomical wisdom and we distort Hashem to be the God of ourselves. He's the God of America. He's the God of Iran. He's the God of Greece. He's the supporter, like the myths, like the Greek myths. He supports Troy. He supports Athens. Every little city-state views God as the source of power for their own vision. So one of two possibilities arise. Aretz is special. The human home is special, either because God ignores it and leaves it to man to do whatever he wants, or because he it empowers each and every man or each and every group of men to follow their own ideological wishes. But one way or the other, this concept is an extremely difficult one for man to accept. Namely, that the same wisdom of Hashem that we see governing and moving the Shemaim and Shmei Shemaim, that same wisdom applies also to Aretz and everybody on it, and it is therefore not true that we are somehow different, but we must learn how to conceive of ourselves under the sovereignty of Hashem. And that conceiving of ourselves under the sovereignty of Hashem is Yira. So with that in mind, we have now come to the substance of what Moshe Rabbeinu is talking about. Service to Hashem begins with Yira. And what it specifically is that Yira? The ability to let go of our fantasy that somehow we are in control of ourselves and not another entity that can be discovered, along with the Shemaim and Shmei Shemaim. That is the message of Yud Bet through Tet Vav. Right here. V'ata Yisrael. So in essence, Moshe Rabbeinu is telling the Jewish people that the substance and essence of his message, as he teaches the Torah, is that we have to come to perceive ourselves on earth as a special case of the great wisdom of the cosmic God. And that's what the mitzvahs are about. V'ata Yisrael, now Israel, Ma'ashem Elokecha Shalom. What does it all come down to? Kim li'yiras Hashem Elokecha, to have awe of Hashem. L'lechet b'chol drachav, to perceive his wisdom permeating all of our ways. Le'ava oso, to come to love that wisdom as the most important passion in our lives. U'la'avod Hashem Elokecha b'chol lavav v'chol hamshacha, to the point that we are unconflicted and have a complete love of that wisdom which permeates every aspect of our lives. Lishmor mitzvot Hashem, to keep the mitzvahs of Hashem. Bet chukotav, and his chukim, asher anochim tzivchayim l'tovlach, which we are being taught today, which would be good for us, because as a mind to understand his wisdom and to be unconflicted about understanding it and applying it in our lives is tov, is good for us. Hein la'Hashem Elokecha, and actually I would say that this is really the next piece, because this goes to the issue of why is this such a what has to happen for this to occur. Hein la'Hashem Elokecha Hashemayim U'Shmei Hashemayim. Logically, think it through. Hashem is the cosmic God whose wisdom, his astronomical and physics wisdom, permeates the entire Shemayim U'Shmei Hashemayim. Ha'aretz v'chol asher ba, of the universe, including Earth and everything which is upon it, and all of our political aspirations. Rak ba'avotecha chashak Hashem. However, Hashem had desire for our forefathers, le'avaotam, to love them, vayibchar b'zaram acharem, and he chose their seed after them. Mikol amim kayom hazeh, out of all the nations to this day. Umaltem et orlat levavchem, v'orpechem lo takshuot. You shall circumcise the uncircumcised hearts. V'orpechem lo takshuot, and your necks you should not stiffen anymore. So what is that? In the quest to become a yareh, in a quest to become a seeker of wisdom who perceives man as part of a wisdom order, what is this orlat lave that we must circumcise? What is that? What about about Troy can be considered, in its beliefs, could be considered an uncircumcised heart? Athens, any ideological community. What holds it back from Egypt? What holds it back from Yiras Hashem, from perceiving man in his natural place in the system of wisdom? What is this orlat halev?
Well, it seems to me like it's the letting go of what we were just saying before, of our natural tendency to want to determine reality for ourselves. That's our natural starting point, is to think that we're the center, we know best, and we'll determine how things should be and how we'll live. But the price of true Yira, is that a person has to take a hit. Their heart, their natural inclination has to take a big hit. It has to be able to accept, no, you're not the center. The way you see things is not necessarily correct or best for you. And so it's similar in a sense to an orla, because you're taking away a little bit of your natural nature. You have to actually step away from the way you're naturally made a little bit in order for your Yira to be the guiding force instead.
Our ideological vision, our ideological narrative resists. Troy doesn't want to be a community of philosophical thinkers who are gradually discovering the fantasies of Homer. Neither does Athens. Neither does America. No community wants to give up its freedom to formulate its own narrative. But to discover man as a natural object is to have awe about what Hashem's wisdom really is, and is to begin to loosen one's beliefs, one's pre-existing beliefs, one's orla salev, one's deeply held and beloved and fond and traditional beliefs that secure the community of men, the seekers, the Yireim, those who are in awe of God's wisdom, must come up against the comforting narrative, the comforting paradigm of their beloved beliefs, the orla salev. And we are stiff-necked about it. We don't want to give up our beliefs, because in our beliefs, our heroic deeds depend upon our beliefs. The heroic deeds of Troy depend upon the greatness of the vision of Troy. The heroic deeds and stories of Athens depend upon the beliefs of Athens. The heroic deeds of America, the heroic deeds of Russia, the heroic deeds of every community depend upon the narrative of defining human greatness. But Yira, at its very essence, means letting go of the concept of human greatness. There is no human greatness. There is no human heroism. There is greatness in the sense of becoming wise, but that's not the heroic greatness that we want. We cannot be a power. In a system in which wisdom is all governing, man cannot be an independent power. We can apply wisdom. We cannot be an independent power. And that's the sort of power that Achilles wants to be. That's the sort of power that Hector wants to be. That's the sort of power that every hero, every nation wants to be. An independent power implementing his orla salev vision. The discoverer relates to the God of wisdom by slowly and carefully letting go of their narrative in face of gradual growth towards a yira and an ava of the wisdom of Hashem wherever it leads them. Ki Hashem Elokeichem Hu Elohei Elohim. Because Hashem, your God, is the Lord of all lords. There is no human Lord. There is no power that man can tap into to empower himself. Vajanei Hajanim, he is the God of gods, the power of powers, and the Lord of lords. Hakel Hagadol Gibor Vanora. Asher lo yisa panim v'lo yikach shachar. And herein lies the root of prayer. The root of prayer lies in the desire of man as a mind and as a thinker to begin to move his focus from the reality of his self-centered narrative towards an expansive wisdom of Hashem, which includes a human species in it. But to perceive oneself in the wisdom in which there is a human species is to let go of the all-encompassing reality of the narrative by which I formulate myself as a special and distinct and unique and singular entity. I am a human being. I'm a member of creation, along with my brothers and sisters. Now, the narrative that I build inevitably makes God either into disconnected from reality, a reality which men govern, or what is more likely, liable to bribery. I pray to God that He strengthen my hand as the hero of Troy to overwhelm Athens. I pray to God that He strengthen my hand as a hero of Athens to overwhelm Troy. I bribe Him with sacrifices. I bribe Him with good deeds, that He empower me to succeed in my narrative. Demonstrate my power and my greatness. The Jewish way is fundamentally different than that. It's not a relationship to Hashem to empower me in achieving my narrative. What we seek is an empowerment of mind to redeem ourselves from our limiting narratives, to becoming a human being and letting go of the immature narrative of the self. What characterizes that? Osem mishpat yatom v'almana. He doesn't empower Hectors, heroes like Hector. He does not empower heroes like Achilles. Osem mishpat yatom v'almana. His all-encompassing wisdom is just. It's all applying. It doesn't apply to those who are powerful in wealth and powerful in deed. It applies to all, even the weak, to all men, even the weakest. Osem mishpat yasam v'almana. The ohev ger, the three weakest members of society, not the politically powerful ones. Latet lo lechem v'simla, to give him bread and clothing. Ve'ahavtem et hager, ki gerim hayitem be'eretz Mitzrayim. You should love the stranger, the convert, because you were strangers in Egypt. Et Hashem Elokecha tira. That characterizes awe of Hashem's wisdom. Oto ta'avot. That is service to Him. Uvot tidbach. That is cleaving to His wisdom to permeate every aspect of our life, educating us out of our original Orla Talev narratives and beliefs. Uvishmo teshaveh. We should swear in His name. So two fundamental characteristics emerge from the proper God concept of Elohim v'Adonai Hadonim, whose wisdom expanses the Shemayim and the Aretz. One, Yira, a shift in focus in which man perceives the limiting Orla Talev of his narrative and seeks the wisdom to become educated and wise and redeemed and free. Number two, justice, a human community which is built upon an equality of people, all of whom are equal as human beings under the law, rather than elites and classes which are based upon our narratives and fantasies. I'll stop for a second and I'll continue on because these two themes, the Elohei Hashemayim va'aretz, the Adonai Hadonim, the Gibor va'Norah, who inspires man to let go of his shochad-based religion, which empowers his own hand in his pursuit of his Orla Talev agenda. This is the fundamental message of Moshe Rabbeinu, which underlies Nechemia. He makes a breakthrough in this and his ability to communicate the implication to his own generation. But before I go into that, questions or comments?
The section that you have highlighted, Rak ba'ov.
Rak ba'avotecha chashak. Only your forefathers did Hashem desire. La'avotam, to love them.
Yeah. Can you go ahead and read that again? Like,
Rak ba'avotecha chashak Hashem. Only your forefathers did Hashem desire. Le'avotam, to love them. Vayidchar b'zara macharim. He chose their seed after them. V'chem mikol amin be'ezeh. From you of all the nations in this day. Why? Umaltemet relat levavchem. Because our nation is dedicated through the teachings of Avraham Avinu and our forefathers to becoming wise, redeemed through wisdom.
That's not what it says there. You're now extemporizing. What does it actually say? Umal tam?
You should circumcise your uncircumcised heart.
Okay. Be'es orlas
Your stiff necks. Your necks you should not leave stiff anymore.
Okay.
So I'm
So where did
interpreting.
you transition to this concept of justice?
It bridges right here.
Yeah.
Insofar as we perceive the uncircumcised nature of our beliefs, which are what separate other nations from each other, and people from each other, and nations of the world from each other. Abraham was the pioneer of getting rid of the Orla Talev, which separates people from each other. Ki Hashem Elokechem hu Elohei Elohim. Hashem, your God, is the God of all gods. V'Adonai Adonai, the Lord of all lords. Hakel Agadol Gibor Vanora Asher Lo Yisapanim Lo Yikashocha. He is the true power, underlying the God and power and hero, and source of awesomeness, who cannot be bribed and will not recognize honorable people.
All right. So he's above bribery and he's above honor.
That's right, because he is a source pure source of wisdom permeating the governance of the human community. But that pure
therefore
wisdom,
real justice could emerge.
which is justice. That is justice. Justice is wisdom, a principle applying to all individuals, free of the distortions of application of justice that serve the interests of the bribers and the nosei panim.
Okay. Thank you for reviewing that.
And therefore he concludes, Osem mishpat yatam v'almanah. God is not the one who gets money for his campaign and therefore writes a law that supports a powerful business interest group. Osem mishpat yatam v'almanah. He brings justice to the weakest of society because his justice is ultimate wisdom, completely free of any Orla Talev distortions.
Okay, thanks.
Okay?
Yeah.
Any other question?
It seems hard for me when it says that God chose us, that kind of makes us special. So it's hard to, on the one hand, not to feel special, but just feel that we are part of God's creation.
Well, let's look at it in context. Right here. Hein la Hashem Elokecha Hashemayim u'shmei Hashemayim. Behold, the Lord your God is the cosmos, ha'aretz v'kol asher ba, and the aretz and all of which is on it. So the Hashem's wisdom governs the entire cosmos. But the lesson that Moshe Rabbeinu is teaching us is not about the cosmos, because we don't focus on it so much, and even insofar as we do, it doesn't bother us that stars should be moving causally or not. Let them do their astronomy, so long as I can do what I want. But the application of the cosmic wisdom of Hashem to the Aretz, that's what troubles us. And that's where the forefathers of Israel become important. Our forefathers are important not relative to Hashem, who is the God of the Shemayim U'Shmei Hashemayim. They're instrumental only to the second part. They're not instrumental to this. They're not instrumental to God being God of the Shemayim. The Shemayim do their thing without Abraham. They did it before, they do it after. They're instrumental here. Ha'aretz v'kol asher ba. Insofar as Hashem's wisdom is going to be a all-encompassing wisdom that governs all parts of his creation, astronomy will govern the planetary bodies. What's going to govern Aretz? What's going to govern Aretz? Mishpat. Justice is going to have to govern Aretz. Not the mishpat of astronomy. Astronomy is a mishpat too. But the mishpat of mitzvos. So insofar as there's a special process for wisdom of Hashem to become applicable to the human community on earth, that's where our forefathers come into the picture. We're not special insofar as Hashem's general governance of the Shemayim Shmei Shemayim. We have a special educational role on Aretz alone. Insofar as Aretz it consists of people who are taught by their forefathers, who we are going to be educated if we live in an educational culture. So Avram Avinu, as the educational forefather of all of humanity, is special in that limited sense, and we are special insofar as we bring his message to humanity. But instrumentally, we're instrumentally important insofar as we are Mamlechet Kohanim V'Goy Kadosh. We're a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. Insofar as we bring the message of Hashem's wisdom and justice and therapy to our Orlas Alev, not just to Judah, not just to Israel, not just to Samaria, but to Greece, to Egypt, to Sparta, to America, throughout the world. So we're special in that limited educational sense and therapeutic sense of helping Aretz become a place in which wisdom and justice supplant myth, superstition, interest-driven politics, ideological politics and interest-driven legal systems.
Right. So you can see that it's extremely, this first line, the Hashemayim va'aretz v'kol asher bo, is extremely important because that sense of specialness, naturally we try to latch right back on to, oh, that's a source of our own power, that's a source of our own honor. We tend to twist it right back into the opposite of Yira.
That's right.
The part that's keeping us honest, the Yira part, is the part that recognizes that we may have a special designated role,
educational role,
because of our attachment of our happening to be a part of the Jewish people, but we don't have any different kind of humanity than anybody else.
And we don't have any sort of special protection and invulnerability to Orlas Alev ideologies either. We are very vulnerable to Orlas Alev ideologies, as we see here in Ha'azinu, which is the second place which Nechemia refers to. So let me go through that. Starting here. God's system is founded on wisdom and justice. We saw that already in the first part of Kel HaGadol Gibor V'Hanora. He is the only power. I'm sorry?
Where are we looking now?
Oh, I'm sorry. You can't see what I have on my blackboard. We are now in Dvarim Lamed Bet. Did you hear that?
Yeah, thank you.
Ha'azinu Hashemayim v'adabera. Listen, heavens, and I will speak. V'tishma ha'aretz imrei pi. Let the earth hear the statements of my mouth. Ya'arov kamatar likchi tizal katal imrati. Let my message move like the rain and seep through like the dew, my statements. Kishem Hashem akra havagodel Eloheinu. In the name of Hashem do I call out. Speak, give good greatness to our God. Hatzur tamim bo'alo. The rock is completely pure in his activity. Ki kol drachav mishpat. All his ways are justice. Kel emunah ve'navel. He is a truthful God without any corruption. Tzaddik v'yasharhu. He is righteous and straight in all his ways. But that is the concept, which is the basis of Kel HaGadol Gibor V'Hanora, of recognizing him in prayer as the only force, the source of wisdom, which is the only force, the only heroic entity, the only source of awe, to the exclusion of magical powers, to the exclusion of human powers, to the exclusion of Orlas Alev ideological realities, fantasies, I should say. But yet, even though we are Jews and our forefathers taught us this way, we are vulnerable to falling prey to the same Orlas Alev as everybody else. Shichet lo banav mumam. They corrupted towards him. His non-children are the source of the evil. Dori Keshup Saltol, a stubborn and crooked generation. Halashem Tigmuzot, you did this, you repaid Hashem in this way? Am Naval V'Lochacham, a scoundrel nation which is not wise. Allahu Avicha Kanecha, Huos Chavi Chonaneka. He is your father. He made you. He founded you. Hashem founded us in wisdom through the teachings of Avram Avinu. That was the source of all of our success. We have to remember that our success was this very education itself, which freed us from the magical beliefs of all the people around us. Look back in history. Consider all the years. Ask your father, he'll tell you. Your elders, and they will tell you. When Hashem was giving lands to the nations, separating people from each other. He set up the nations to allow for the quantity of Israel. The part of Hashem in the world is Israel, Jacob, and his legacy. He took us in the desert, in the howling desert. He moved us around and educated us. He protected us like his own eye. Like an eagle protects his young, floating above his children. He put out his wings and took us and carried us away. Hashem badad yanchenu. Hashem took us by himself. Eini moel nichar. There was no other power. But we fell prey to the exact same or less slave as all other nations. Vayishman Yeshurun Vayivat. The Jews became fat and kicked. Shamanta Avita Kasita. You became fat and thick and coarse. Vayitoshe Lohaseu. We let go of the God who had made us wise people. Vaynabel Tzur Yeshuato. We disgraced the rock of our deliverance. Yakniyu Bizarim. We made him jealous with alien magical gods. The Toivot Yachisu, with horrific idolatrous practices, we angered him. Yizbechu Lashedim Lo Eloah. We began sacrificing to devils, not to God. Elohim Lo Yidom. Gods we had no knowledge of, we never considered before. Chadashim Ikarovau. New concepts which had come immediately. Lo Siarum Avotechem. Our forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, had never imagined such craziness. We forgot the God who made us. Vayar Hashem vayinatz mikas banavu b'notav. Hashem saw and was angered from his children and daughters. Vayomer astira panay mehem. I will remove my presence from them. Erem macharitam. Let us see what it will be their end. Kidor tapuchotema. They are a destructive generation. Banim lo emun ba. Children who are not worthy. Hem kin uni beloel. They made me jealous with a non-God. Ki asuni behav lehem. Made me angry with their foolishness. Ani akniem beloam. I will allow them to be taken over by a non-nation. The goy naval achisem. I will make them angry with a scoundrel-like nation. So we had the unique relationship with the wisdom of Hashem. We were educated by Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob into the concept of Akel Agadol Gibar Vanara. We were illuminated into the process of Yiras, of letting go of our Orlat Alev, of conceiving of an all-encompassing cosmic wisdom of Hashem, encompassing earth, bringing a wise mitzvah system of justice applicable to each and every individual in the exact same manner as gravity is applicable to every material entity, exposing the lie of the magical beliefs, exposing the lie of the hierarchies of interest groups of the narratives of ideological man. We threw it away. We brought into our own midst the exact same magical gods, supporting the exact same ideological Jewish people, the exact same mystical beliefs, and that's where the Jews were prior to the destruction, and which is right immediately before Ezra and Nechemia. That's the nation, the non-nation that Hashem is speaking of. Nechemia is living in that nation. It's Babylonia. It's Nebuchadnezzar. That's who Moshe Rabbeinu was talking about, was prophesying about. We chose to enter into the magical beliefs of the international community, non-gods, non-powers, non-wisdom. We got sucked into the vortex of a non-nation, an inhuman nation, governed by the Orlas Alev beliefs of its own narrative and ideology. That is the backstory to Nechemia. And in that sense, is the backstory to Chanuka. What does Israel await? It slumbers. Israel slumbers. The nation of wise men has left the God of wisdom. The nation of just men has left Hatsur Tamim Po'alo, the God of justice. The nation of the culture of loving the convert, loving the stranger, bringing wisdom to every aspect of life, of Orlat Alev, has fallen asleep and dwells in the culture of a fantasy-based, mythologically based community of Babylonia. Unjust, a court rife with intrigue, where justice has no place. And alliances are forming and falling and falling and forming, falling and forming around kings and leaders and groups ascending and falling in their power control. And the whole nation, including the Jews, moves around that. This is the lifestyle that we brought upon ourselves, that Nechemia and the nation around him awakens from. The Jewish nation is asleep, and it awaits the moment of awakening. That awakening is a restoration of the God of Abraham. He who, the wisdom of Shemaim, Shemaim, awaits to come back to earth. And will come back through the awakened relationship to Hashem of the leader of Israel, the Nechemia, the Ezra. So that's why the redemption of Israel begins with prayer. And it's very, very obvious, and we can immediately see why. It begins with prayer, it begins with justice, it begins with a reconnection of the concept of Elohei Hashemayim and an awareness of what we had done to ourselves. Before I read inside, any questions?
Your description of, or Nehemiah's description of what the state of affairs was with the Jewish.
He doesn't talk about that. That is discussed in the book of Daniel. The book of Daniel does a very good job of describing what it was like in the court of the non-nation, of the fantasy-based nation.
Right, but even what we just read here doesn't describe the details, but it describes the general, the problematic state that the Jews fell into.
Absolutely.
And I was just thinking as you were reading it that it's very reminiscent of what happened with the Jews before the Holocaust, of being sucked into a national pride and a sense of themselves as something other than just Jews, but also Germans, and you read all these you read the Holocaust stories, and it's not that they were in courts and they had power and stuff, but that concept of being very good citizens and very excellent Germans, you know, the shock
Right.
of
Buying
they
into
were working so hard to fit in, to be fantastic citizens, but
right
in
within
a
the
nation where it was what that nation stood for was actually in direct contradiction to what it means to be a Jew. You can't be both of those things. And they were trying to be both of those things, it seems
right,
like. And
right.
just like in Nechemia's time, they were trying to be part of the king's court as well as be Jews.
hmm Well,
Hashem
I'm not saying
used to
I'm not
demand only
saying
one allegiance.
there was nothing wrong with them being members of the court. Mordechai was also a member of the court. Nechemia isn't criticized for being a member of the court, but you'll immediately see that that Mordechai wasn't a member of the court because he bought into the Persian ideological narrative. Nechemia wasn't a member of the court because he bought into the Babylonian ideological nationalism.
Right. The
We're
same with
immediately
Mordechai.
what?
Same with Mordechai.
The same with Mordechai. But we'll see in a second what it was that they were doing there, and what in what sense they were sleeping and in what sense they awakened.
Okay.
Different
This
Nehemiah. Go ahead.
is this the same state that the Jews are in every time every time something really bad happens to us, like, the carbon of the two Beis Hamikdash? We were in
This is
this
the.
state each time.
It's not that it exists at the time of the Churban and then goes away until the next disaster occurs. It's there straight through. It's just that, in other words, a person who doesn't. Let me think of an example. So the person so it's like the old fable of the creature that one of the creatures was working and preparing for the winter, and the other one's just playing and playing and playing, and the winter comes and it's not ready, right? I forget which creature was which, but in other words, the creature that was playing all summer long was operating in fantasy straight through the summer. The creature that was working all summer long, preparing for the winter, was in reality the entire summer long. Now it's true when the first snow came and there was not abundant food around, the fantasy of the creature that had been playing all summer long came home to roost at that particular moment. That's not because they were in reality before; they were in fantasy straight through. So too, when Israel is believing in astrology, when it's believing in unrealistic beliefs, when and the Arabs around are distracted and don't attack, they're in fantasy straight through. It's not just that they become in fantasy when the Arabs happen to unite and attack, and then we see the consequences. We're in fantasy straight through. It's just that the fact that we're in fantasy and governed by magical beliefs and not thinking about the Jews of Persia were in fantasy straight through. It's not just when Haman got up and wanted to kill them that their fantasy revealed itself, but that's when the true vulnerability of our situation, the fact that we hadn't been paying attention to it and we didn't really have the tools to protect ourselves from it, that's when it became obvious. But we were vulnerable straight through. We were fantasizing that we were okay straight through. That was just the condition which shed light upon it, revealed it.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
So we don't have to beg the question, but like if we're following through a theme here, right, of that the Jews as a people can fall into fantasy, and they're in fantasy straight through, right?
Right.
So, and then Hashem does something about it because the inevitable consequences will come about when we
Right.
allow ourselves to, when we fall into that fantasy, we will fall prey to the nations that we're in.
That's right.
So, like, what do you have any sense at all of what is the fantasy that the Jewish people fell into before the Holocaust? Like that whole generation, like what happened? What fantasy were they operating under? Like I see it kind of, when we look at the story of Mordechai and Esther, and they talk about the parties and everybody wanting to. And Nechemia talks about, Daniel talks about what the Jews were doing in his time, where it shows what fantasy they fell under. But it's hard for me, like, do we have any perspective at all on what fantasy did the Jewish people fall into in Europe, where
I think it's the same fantasy.
Destruction?
I mean, in general, probably the same fantasy as Persia, but I'm sure it has it's very particular aspects.
I think it's the same fantasy we live under. We Jews are in the highest echelons of government, in industry, in entertainment, and we think that we are very important Americans, and that I think that what happened in Europe can't happen to us. There were Jews who were part of the government in Germany also, and they assimilated, just like the Jews in the United States assimilate all the time. And so I don't think that we're any different than the people were in Germany before the Holocaust.
Probably not. We
live under the same fantasy that they lived under.
Yeah, that the fundamental factors, that all our brethren in our community, all our fellow Americans, the same basis of security that everybody around us has. You play by the rules of America, and you'll succeed. That everybody else has, we fall prey. The same Orla Saleh that everybody else has, we're vulnerable to also. And
right.
and therefore, which is to say, the lack of yira, the lack of awe that calls us to reconnect, awaken and reconnect to the God of Shemayim Shemei Shemayim, the God of Avram Yitzchak Yaakov, the God of Kel Gadol Gibar Vanora, the lack of sense of passion and urgency to identify the Orla Salev in ourselves through the tools that Hashem gives us, and therefore a contentment to create the external impression that we're davening, to create the external impression that we're doing our mitzvahs, without sufficient yira, passion, to really find the underlying wisdom of Hashem in a real, tangible growth of identifying specific domains of Orla Salev in ourselves in this specific domain, in an ongoing way. Now, what I'd like to do now is, it's getting a little bit late, so I'd like to start showing the specific domains, because we can't immediately go into the specific. We do have to go step by step. And Nechemia leaves a trail of breadcrumbs of his own epiphany. So let's allow Nechemia to put the breadcrumbs of his own journey in front of us and follow him breadcrumb by breadcrumb. Divrei Nechemia ben Chakalia, the words of Nechemia, son of Chakalia.
Could I just ask you a favor? Could you read a little slowly so I can follow along better?
Okay. I'm in Nechemia chapter 1 now.
Yeah, right. I see it. You read so fast that I can't take in the words.
Okay.
What you're saying.
Divrei Nechemia ben Chakalia. The words of Nechemia, son of Chakalia. Vayi b'chodesh Kislev, it was in the month of Kislev, Shnat Isrim, in the 20th year, Vani eiti b'Shushan Abira. I was in Shushan, the capital city. Exact same place as Mordechai. Vayavo Chanani echad mi achai. Chanani, one of my brothers came. Hu va'anashim mi Yehuda. He and some men from Judah. Ve'eshalem al hayudim ha'pleita. I asked them about the Jews who were left in Israel. Asher nisharu min hashebi v'al Yerushalayim, who had been left over from the imprisonment, and regarding Jerusalem. So he asked them about it. A Jew comes to the big city. This is a very important Jew. Nechemia was one of the highest ranking Jews in the land. A Jew comes from Israel, and he asks him about it. Vayamrli, and they said to me, Hanisharim asher nisharu min hashvi, the people that were left over from the imprisonment, Sham b'Medina, there in the country, Bira'ag dola v'chirpa, are in great hardship and disgrace. Chomat Yerushalayim meporetzet, the wall of Jerusalem is shattered. Ushareha nitztu ba'esh, and its gates have been burned down with fire.
With fire.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go on.
It was when I heard these things, Yashavti v'evke, I sat and I cried, Ve'etabala yamin, and I mourned for days. Ve'ehi tzam u'mitpalel, I fasted and I prayed, Lifnei Elohei Hashemayim, before the God of the heavens. Now, applying what we just learned, what does he focus on and what does he not focus on?
He fasted and he prayed. The God of the heavens.
Hold on.
He's focusing on the state of the people that stayed behind.
Hold on a second. Yeah.
The God of the heavens.
Oh, and what does he not have?
Aretz, v'kol asher ba.
Moshe Rabbeinu talks about Elohei Hashemayim also. Hein la Hashem Elokecha Hashemayim u'shmei Hashemayim.
Also,
I'm just going to copy this and put it there so you can see
Yael
it.
is saying something.
Go ahead, Yael.
also he's focusing on the cherpa, the shame, and the broken walls.
Yeah.
That's what's really making him mourn.
I'm just going to put it right here so you can see the difference. Hein la Hashem Elokecha. As Moshe Rabbeinu says it, Hashem your God, Hashemayim u'shmei Hashemayim. The heavens and the heavens. Ha'aretz v'kol asher ba. The earth and all that is on it. Whereas Nechemia, V'hisham samu mitpalel l'fnei Elohei Hashemayim. Now, so he was praying to the Elohei Hashemayim. Now, Yael's point is a good one, and I think we can see the connection. In other words, he's focusing in on the destruction of Israel, the destruction of Jerusalem, the burned down gates, the burned down Mikdash, the pathetic and disgraceful state of the people. Does that explain why he is praying to the God of the heavens and not the Aretz?
Yeah, it does.
Go ahead.
What you were saying before. He feels his yad. He doesn't have powerful yad. And his dreams have been shattered.
Right.
And he's praying to the powerful God of the heavens to help him.
Where's the hand of Hashem? In other words, the Elohei Hashemayim, you can look and see in astronomy every day. What about the Elohei Aretz? Do you see his Shekhinah in the Mikdash in a glorious educational experience illuminating the great men of Israel every year, which they share with the Jews coming 3 times a year? No. It's burned down. Do you see it in the blessing of the fields, which excite the people and fill them with enthusiasm to want to come to Jerusalem and learn and be infused with wisdom? No, they're in a disgraceful condition. Do you see it in the great terror that Hashem brings about in the enemies of Israel, like in Yamsuf, where he's in Ish Milchama, destroying the powers of the world? No. Powers of the world are dominating Israel, imprisoning her, burning down her gates. Where's the Eloi Arts?
So I don't understand your.
I don't know go ahead.
What'd you say, Al?
Go ahead, Molly.
I'm just saying I don't understand the point. I'm confused.
I'm saying there's no expression of Eloi Arts. It's just words.
So
So he prays to Eloi Hashemayim because he doesn't see an Eloi Arts. He doesn't see expression of Eloi Arts.
well, the expression of Eloi Aretz is the destruction of the people. That is Eloi Aretz, because they're erring and
It's true,
is upon them.
but that causes him to focus in on what he can do in his land of Babylonia. But it causes despair and a sense of incapacity to implement the prayer of the mission of developing a new society of justice in Israel. Elohei Aretz is about leaving Egypt. It's not about doing your best in Egypt.
Right.
It's about taking the wisdom of Sinai and developing a new country in Israel. It's not about doing your best in Babylon. So his prayers, there's an impact on his prayers at that. It's not to say he didn't pray, but there's a tremendous limitation in his capacity to pray, which is Shemayim focused and not so much Aretz focused.
Okay.
But that, what?
I said, okay. Yael, were you saying something?
Yeah, I'm not sure if I understand if it's a criticism of Nechemia or if it's like I hear you saying that Nechemia didn't see in his world Elokei Aretz, which seems clear. So would want him to be praying for all the things that you said before, like to be praying for a society of justice and the teachers of Torah to be teaching a Torah that calls people and inspires them to build a wall instead of praying for the wall itself. That's what you would hope that it would be. But he's limited by the fact that he can't even imagine such a Torah.
That's right.
So, yeah.
But that changes.
Hold on, but in this prayer here, go ahead.
So that's what has been up till, that's the backstory before Perek Aleph, and Perek Aleph discusses the awakening.
Oh, cool. Okay.
So the event, he's been there for a long time. He's been there for years and years. But the time of awakening is not. And no doubt there's been many people from Israel that, he didn't know what was going on in Israel in a general way? He was there. He knew, right?
Right.
He had the book of Jeremiah, he had the book of, he had plenty, he was there. He knew probably. His parents told him. But Psukim Aleph through Daled describe the transition. The Nevi'im had prophesied that the Jews would be in exile for a certain period of time, and the time was up, and he began to be able to conceive of what it would mean to realize the awakening and the return. And this time, the depiction of what was going on in Israel awakened his inspiration of an actionable prayer, a awakened relationship to Elokei Haaretz, which would not just be a vision or a dream, but would be a well thought out conceptual plan founded in a new kind of prayer, which started with a sense of enormous of recognition of we're here because we put ourselves here. We're the non-children. Allah Hashem Tigamaluzot. You did this to our educator, our maker, our creator. We're the non-children. We're the ones who are the non-gods. We put ourselves in Babylonian. And that erupted in a tremendous sense of shame and passion to change. I sat and I cried. I mourned for days. I fasted and I prayed before the Hashem, the Elokei Hashemayim. And then in Hey, everything starts changing. Va'omar, and I said, Ana Hashem Elokei Hashemayim, Hakel Hagadol Hagadol V'Anara. He starts reconsidering and perceiving a reality and a conceptual application in his own real life planning of Hakel Hagadol Gibor V'Anara. These concepts had been there in words before. I'm sure he'd learned them in Shir many, many times. But they start to have concrete, specific, applicable meaning. Shomer habrit v'chesed. He who guards the covenant with and chesed. Lo avav l'shomei mitzosav. To those who love him and keep his mitzvahs. Tihi na oznecha kashevet. Let your ear be listening. Veinecha ptuchot lishmoa el tfilat avdecha. And your eyes open to hear the prayer of your servant. Asher ani chimit pel lefanecha hayam, which I am praying for you today. Yomam v'layla al bnei Yisrael avadecha. Day and night about your children Israel, your servants. Umitvadeh al chatot bnei Yisrael asher chatanu lach. And I confess the sins which we have done. Ani uveit abi chatanu. I and the house of my forefathers have sinned. Chaval nulach. We did evil. Lo shamarnu mitzvot. We did not keep the mitzvahs. V'sachukim v'tamishpatim and the chukim and mishpatim. Asher tzivita es Moshe Abdach, which you taught to Moshe your servant. Zechor na et hadavar asher tzivita et Moshe Abdach lemor. Remember what you said to Moshe your servant. Atem timalu ani afitz etchem ba'amim. You will betray Hashem with non-gods, and I will spread you among the people. V'shavtem elai u'shmartem mitzvotai v'asitim otem. Im yinidachachem b'ktzei hashamayim mishama kabatzchem v'aviotim ela makam asher b'charta shken shemisham. Though you be spread out in the expanses of the heavens, I will gather you together to the place which I have chosen to rest my name there. V'hem avadecha ve'amecha asher padita b'kochacha gadol v'yadcha chazaka. They are your servants in your nation, which you rescued with your great power and your mighty hand. Is this the first time has Nechemia not had a Seder every single year he's in Galus? Has he not talked about the great hand of Israel, of Hashem smiting the Egyptians with Makos every single year at the Seder? So what's changed? Pasuk Yud Aleph is what's changed. Ana Adonai, please, my master, Ti'inaz necha kashevet el tfilat avdecha. Let your ears be listening to the prayer of your servant. Vel tfilat avdecha chapitzim li'yirei shmecha. To this prayer of your servant and the prayer of your other servants who want to restore awe of your name. Hatzlicha na lavdecha yom. Bring success to your servant today. Usnei l'rachamim l'fnei ish hazeh. And may your mercy be upon me before this man. Vani eti mashke lamelech. I was the cupbearer to the king. He perceived in his own world, he had a very high position. He perceived it in a new light. He perceived an opportunity to use his position in a way he had never conceived of using it before. He conceived of using it, perhaps, the Jew's in trouble. Help this Jew not be killed by this guy. Help that Jew. Let this synagogue not be destroyed, whatever it might be. He had never been able to conceptualize that perhaps his position as the cupbearer could be utilized to resurrect the mission which had begun with Yado Chazaka and taking the Jews out of Egypt. He could be an instrument of the Yad Chazaka. Something within Nechemia caused him to perceive his own circumstance as containing opportunities he had never seen it before, which he could conceive in prayer as being perhaps the instrumentalities of the awakening of the people to Yiras, which would restore the Elokei Hashemayim to being a Kel Agadol Gibar Banara, whose hand could again be conceived of by his people, leading them to rebuild their land, who would empower all of them with a new sense of Yad, a capacity to not just talk about, but perceive themselves as realistically implementing the mission of so long ago to go back to Israel, to remove our shame, to rebuild the walls, etc., etc., etc. But what I want to emphasize here is that the revolution in the concept of Hashem preceded prayer. The revolution of seeing how the Elokei Hashemayim could be the Elokei Haaretz, could be the Elokei Agadol Gibar Banara, that's what transformed Nehemiah's conception of his opportunities. It's not that he saw the opportunities and said, I'm going to do it. There was a transformation, a mental transformation of perception, such that he saw his circumstance with new eyes. The relationship to Hashem changed, and therefore his identity changed, and the world in which he perceived himself changed, and the exact same situation, which before he had seen as without hope, he saw opportunity. And that opportunity was a revolutionary prayer in which he was able to perceive himself in the framework of a Kel Agadol Gibar Banara.
It sounds like you're saying that what shifted him to starting to think of himself that way was, I'm talking on the phone, was outside of himself, and it was the arrival of the deadline of the Galus. So in fact, it was that put it in motion.
Well, of course, it's true. The deadline of Galus had to arrive, but there were many people who were living at the time of deadline. There's only one Nechemia. There's only one Ezra. And there was a very, very small number of people who were able to reconceive their world and see the factors for what they really were. Many people met this guy. Many people met many guys from Israel. Very few had this metamorphosis.
Are we basically done?
I don't want to go any further today. Any other questions?
No, thank you. Yeah, Al, have a good Shabbos.
Shabbos their way.
It's nice hearing your voice.
You too.
All right. Thank you, Yoni.
You're very welcome.
Yeah.
And Kochava, I'm sitting here watching you, Kochava. You look beautiful sitting there.
You look
As
beautiful.
always. As always.
You look beautiful also. It's fun to see your face.
I know.
Could you turn off the recording?
Yeah.
Thank you, Yoni. Things to think about while I'm peeling veggies in my kitchen.
Very
Wait,
good.
Yoni, take off the screen share. I can't change the recording until you take off the screen share. Okay.